Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
And I'm Leah.
And today we're going to continue to connect with the universe in The Alchemist. And Santiago, the main character of this novel, actually did connect with the universe and was able to find his treasure back in Spain under the sycamore tree. And he was able to reunite with his true love in that oasis in North Africa.
That's right. And today we're going to go a little bit into the themes in the novel. So we're going to discuss a lot of the different main topics that are coming up in the book as we are looking through today's lesson.
Indeed. So, let's talk about some of those themes and ideas and about the author himself, if I can pronounce it in Portuguese, Paulo Coelho. Yes, this author is from Brazil. They speak Portuguese there. So I imagine the first edition of this book was in Portuguese, and the one we're talking about is the translation. But in any case, let's get to it. Let's read through the entire contents of today's lesson, and we'll be right back to discuss it. In The Alchemist, Santiago learns about the spiritual essence of the self and the world through a number of powerful themes. His journey is shaped by dreams and omens, which facilitate communication with the soul of the world. Initially, this divine connection awakens Santiago to his personal legend through a dream, while it later sends a warning with the omen of fighting hawks in the desert. One's personal legend is a second major theme. To achieve his higher calling, Santiago must sacrifice temporary comforts and security. He leaves home, takes risks along an uncertain journey, and even pauses a relationship to complete his personal mission and lead a purposeful life. To reach this end, Santiago must embrace the unity of all things, another prominent theme. Just as Santiago is united with the soul of the world through his visions, when he prays to the hand that wrote all, his unity with this higher power grants him his own godlike abilities. The Alchemist and its themes were largely influenced by Brazilian author Paulo Coelho's own life. Coelho's religious parents discouraged him from pursuing his dream of becoming a writer. Instead, Coelho attended law school before dropping out and becoming a political activist during Brazil's 1970s hippie movement. On an expedition to Spain in 1986, he went on a pilgrimage to Santiago de Compostela, which inspired him to follow his true calling and devote himself fully to his writing. 2 years later, he published the best-selling novel The Alchemist, which was so beloved around the globe that it became the most translated book by a living author.
All right, everybody. So welcome back. Now we're going to look at today's lesson, and we're going to continue on with The Alchemist as we are connecting with the universe in The Alchemist. I don't know about you, but when I see this lead-in title, I don't know. I think we're getting definitely into some really spiritual topics, as I mentioned yesterday. If you're connecting with the universe, I think about how, you're looking for the power of the universe to help you and guide you and maybe give you energy to perform miracles, as we know Santiago did before. In this book, that's something that seems to be very strongly present, that whole spiritual belief and, the connection with the universe. So in The Alchemist, our first sentence says, in The Alchemist, Santiago learns about the spiritual essence of the self and the world through a number of powerful themes. So we're going to talk about these themes today. And Santiago is learning about the spiritual essence. So spiritual is different, that it's about your spirit. It's different from your physical, right? You talk about your body and what your body does. But when you talk about your spirit and what your spirit feels, you're talking about, kind of that thing that we hope stays around after we pass away. way. It's your soul. And the essence that we're talking about is also, in a way, your soul. It's that thing about you that is very, very unique. That's why we get the word essential, right? It's something that is absolutely necessary. The essence is almost like if you would make yourself an aromatherapy oil. You go out and you pick a whole bunch of lavender flowers and you'd squeeze and squeeze and squeeze and get these little bitty drops of lavender oil, and that would be the essence of the lavender itself.
Indeed, or sometimes you might eat essence of chicken or something like that as a dietary supplement or something. It's kind of the nature of something or the character of something. So yes, indeed, this is the spiritual essence of the self, the kind of spiritual characteristic. It has to do with your soul, and it also has to do with the world, and this happens through a number of powerful themes or ideas that we read about in the book. Now, his journey or his quest or his destiny is shaped by dreams and omens, which facilitate communication with the soul of the world. So yes, all sorts of things happen. He has this dream about treasure being buried under the pyramids. He sees those two hawks fighting, and I think there are some other things that happen. So of course, his journey is shaped by those dreams and omens. They kind of influence his dream, and they influence what he does. And again, they facilitate communication with the soul of the world. And here, to facilitate just means to make something happen, or at least to make it easier for something to happen.
And it might come from the word facile, which is a French word that means easy. Something is simple. So if you facilitate something, you make it easier, you make it simple. So it's easier for him to communicate with the soul of the world. We have all these capitalized, very mysterious, very spiritual sounding things. So we know this book has a lot of, spiritual depth to it. And we also know that initially, this divine connection awakens Santiago to his personal legend through a dream, while it later sends a warning with the omen of fighting hawks in the desert. Initially means from the beginning, the first thing that we get, the initial impression that we have of something is the first impression. So initially, in the beginning or at first, this divine connection. So divine here is talking about of God or of something very, very holy. So this connection to a God or this connection to something very holy or very spiritual connects Santiago to his personal legend. And I just wanted to mention legend here. Legend here is something quite unique, although this has become very popular to talk about your personal legend. I believe Oprah even has it on her show, talking about your personal legend and whether you're getting the things done in life that you want to. Your personal goal, I would say, is probably the same thing. But the word legend, normally not capitalized so much, is something that we see on maps. And the legend of a map is what we also call the key of a map. It's where it tells us how long a line is. So from point A to point B, if you want to know how long that is, you can look at the legend. You'll also know signs on a map. You'll find in the legend the signs on a map for rivers or mountains and things like that.
Indeed, so this is the second major theme of this novel, one's personal legend. And to achieve his higher calling, Santiago must sacrifice temporary comforts and security. So if you have a calling, that means you kind of have a destiny in life, what you're meant to do. And oftentimes, of course, we use this word calling to talk about your career. Hey, what's your calling? I was meant to be a doctor. I was meant to be a businessman and make tons of money, or I was meant to be a teacher, or I was meant to be a care worker in third world countries or something like that. That's your calling, or that's your destiny in life. And this is a higher calling, something more meaningful in life, something more spiritual. And in order to achieve this higher calling, he's got to sacrifice some things. He's got to let go of those temporary comforts like the oasis, and he needs to sacrifice some security and maybe put himself in danger, hence he gets beat up by those two guys in Egypt.
That's right, and it actually says here he leaves home, so he leaves his comforts, he leaves his house, he leaves a sycamore tree that he can sleep under, and he takes those risks that you were mentioning, Tom, along an uncertain journey. So he's moving forward, not really clear why he's doing it or what he's doing, but knows he has to take this risk and get off and go on the road, and he even pauses a relationship to complete his personal mission and lead a purposeful life. So he even pauses a relationship. That's a little bit of an interesting way to say this. It just means that he, as you remember, he fell in love with Fatima, and she said, hey, go and finish your destiny and come back to me afterwards. So he pauses the relationship. It's like pressing pause on a record, on a tape recorder, and then you'll stop the pause and you'll play it again. But he's pausing a relationship. He plans to come back to it, but he's temporarily halting it. And he's doing that to go and complete his personal mission and lead a purposeful life. When we see a word with F-U-L at the end, it normally means that it's full of something. This word is full of purpose. You can also have useful, it's full of use, masterful, full of mastery, or like wonderful, which is full of amazing things, of wonder.
Indeed, so this also means that he's leading a life full of purpose. It is meaningful. It's just not an ordinary life like most people live, who just live and die and are unknown after they die. This guy is leading a life that is profound and it's purposeful. So, of course, we want to follow it in this novel. Okay, that brings us to the midway point in our lesson for today. It's time now to listen to our Chinese teacher.
Hello, everyone. 我是派老师。今天讲解的是1月份 Unit 15第2天的课程。这个单元第1天介绍《牧羊少年奇幻之旅》一书，主要是在告诉我们这本书的故事内容。第2天则告诉我们书的主旨，也让我们看到作者他的人生旅程就有如书中的人物一样曲折离奇。我们现在一起看看这个单元有哪些学习重点吧。在第1段里面，第2句 His journey is shaped by dreams and omens, which facilitate communication with the soul of the world. 请同学把 facilitate 画起来。Facilitate 英文的解释是 make an action or process easy or easier. 那意思呢，就是让某个动作、某个过程变得简单或更简单。那我们用 facilitate 造个句子，比方说 The new ramp will facilitate the entry of wheelchairs. 我们知道很多场所都有无障碍设施，那这个例句就跟无障碍设施有关。The new ramp will facilitate the entry of wheelchairs. 意思就是新的坡道将可方便轮椅进入。再来，请同学看到第3个句子 Initially, this divine connection 这个句子，请同学特别注意到这里有一个动词 awakens， 它的意思呢是 make someone aware of something for the first time， 就是唤醒别人，让他们注意到什么。那比方说，我们造个句子 The film helped to awaken many people to the danger of disinformation. 有一部电影让大家呢都醒过来，清醒了，意识到假消息是非常危险的。再来，请看到第2段的第2句 To achieve his higher calling, Santiago must sacrifice temporary comforts and security. 这个 calling 的意思是使命，那也可以当作职业的意思。再来，请看到第3个句子 He leaves home 一直到 and lead a purposeful life。 那由于一样是在这个 to complete his personal mission 之后，所以在不定词之后我们用原形才会用 lead a purposeful life。 那另外同学要注意的就是文法的词语搭配的部分， lead a purposeful life 过着有意义的人生，过着什么样的人生？动词用 lead。We're
going to take a short break now, but please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
We're back again, and we're continuing our look at the themes in The Alchemist. And we find out that to reach this end of completing his personal mission and leading a purposeful life, to reach this end, this result, Santiago must embrace the unity of all things, another prominent theme. So Santiago needs to embrace. It's like to hug, right? If you embrace somebody, you hug them. But here, embrace means to open up your heart and accept something. What does he have to open up his heart and accept? Well, the unity of all things. Again, remember, we're connecting with the universe, so we're finding how we are connected to the universe. We're finding how the universe affects us. And here he is embracing that awareness of his connection to all things in the universe, the unity of all things, how all things are one. And that is another prominent theme. How all things are one is another prominent theme. Prominent means, one that really sticks out. So you can have prominent features. You might have a very strong nose and a strong chin. Then they might say, oh, he has a very prominent chin, which means you have a chin that kind of sticks out.
Yep, it sticks out, so of course it's a theme that we should pay attention to. It's quite obvious. And just as Santiago is united with the soul of the world through his visions, when he prays to the hand that wrote all, his unity with this higher power grants him his own godlike abilities. So just because Santiago is united with the soul of the world in the same way, his visions, when he prays to the hand that wrote all, his unity with his higher power grants him his own godlike abilities. So because he has done this, because he has prayed to the hand that wrote all, and because he is also united with the soul of the world, therefore he has this special power in which he can perform miracles. He has his own godlike abilities. So remember, everybody, if you want to have special magic powers and you want to control other people and rule the world, all you've got to do is connect with the soul of the world and with the hand that wrote all, and then you are king of the universe.
Ah, you've got plans, I see, Tom.
It's that simple. Yeah.
So, why is this a theme, or why are all these themes coming out in The Alchemist? Well, The Alchemist and its themes were largely influenced by Brazilian author Coelho, Paul Coelho's own life. So they come from him. Something in his life made him kind of dream up these ideas. And if you are a writer and you have the ability to write a story, who wouldn't want to write a story where you can have these amazing powers like turning into wind and disappearing and showing up, 90 miles away at the Egyptian pyramids? I think if I would be a writer, I would definitely add some fun stuff like that.
Certainly. So, of course, he experienced things like that in his life here. He was influenced, or at least the themes were influenced by his own life. So let's talk about the author here, Paulo Coelho. He was born in 1947, just after World War II, and his religious parents discouraged him from pursuing his dream of becoming a writer. You want to be a writer? Well, lots of people want to be writers, but only a handful of people actually can be successful. It's not a very good choice for a career. Maybe you should choose a career as a lawyer or something like that. Lawyers can make tons of money and they can drive expensive cars and things like that. So again, they were religious and they discouraged him from wanting to be a writer. So you can encourage somebody to do something and you can discourage somebody from doing something. So yes, your parents, of course, might encourage you to become successful in your career, but they'll discourage you from, say, becoming an artist or something like that, or a musician, because, again, only a few people can be successful with that.
And you can also become discouraged as well. You can become discouraged when your parents tell you, oh, you'll never succeed at doing something like that. Then you become discouraged. You become a little bit depressed, and you just don't really believe in yourself anymore that you will be successful at whatever it is that you want to do. But you mentioned law school or becoming a lawyer, and instead, Coelho attended law school before dropping out. And and becoming a political activist during Brazil's 1970s hippie movement. So he did try to move away from being a writer. He said, well, Mom and Dad, they don't really like this. I'm not going to do it. So I'm going to attend law school. So he attended law school. He signed up and he went to classes. But then he dropped out, so he quit law school. You can attend and you can drop out. If you're a dropout, that's the noun of that. That means you're a person who has quit something. So you can drop out of high school and you're a high school dropout. You can drop out of university and you're a university dropout. And he dropped out to become a political activist. So somebody who's like, look, this government is not working for us the way the government's supposed to be working for us, and I'm going to protest this. So that's what a political activist is probably going to do. He's going to do a lot of activities where he is protesting against the government. And that was during Brazil's 1970s hippie movement.
So if you're a hippie, you're likely going to be against war and things like that. You're going to probably hang out with other hippies, and you're going to do a lot of drugs and listen to psychedelia and things like that. So he was involved with this. And then he was on an expedition to Spain in 1986. That's interesting. Exposition and expedition. They're similar words. An expedition is a trip somewhere, but exposition is like some kind of show of products. So you have lots of expositions here in Taiwan, but this was an expedition. It was a journey to Spain in the year 1986. And then he went on a pilgrimage to Santiago de Compostela, which inspired him to follow his true calling and devote himself fully to his writing. So this is a place in Spain called Santiago de Compostela. That's probably where he got the name from. I believe that's on that pilgrimage trail in Spain, which I think is called Camino de Santiago, actually. So he went there, and he probably ran into other pilgrims on that trail, so it inspired him to follow his true calling. I was meant to be a writer, and he devoted himself fully to his writing. He became a writer full-time.
That's right, and it looks like he also came up with the name of his main character during this pilgrimage, because it's Santiago de Compostela, so he probably used that Santiago to create the name of his main character. 2 years later, so after he's devoted himself, he really did devote himself. If in 2 years he managed to produce a book, 2 years later, he published the best-selling novel, The Alchemist, which was so beloved around the globe that it became the most translated book by a living author. Okay, so he spent the next 2 years devoting his time, dedicating his time, his energy, his love, his passion to writing, and he was successful. Some folks dedicate 2 years to something and they come out and they don't have anything to show for it. But he did. He had a best-selling novel. So this novel did very, very well. Everybody bought it. He was very lucky. And that was The Alchemist. And this book, this novel, was so beloved, or beloved, you can say both, around the globe that it became the most translated book by a living author. That's a pretty fascinating title to have, because you think of all the books that are out there written in a local language, and they've been translated into other languages. And this particular fellow, Coelho, was able to create a book that is the most translated book by any living author. That means while he's still alive, this book has been translated more times than any other book out there.
Good for him, and I suppose his parents were pretty angry at him for becoming a hippie, but when he was able to publish this best-selling novel, they probably changed their tune and said, well, son, we actually are very proud of you for being successful, and they probably bought him a bottle of whiskey, and they had a good time together, and now they're a happy family. Of course, this probably happened a long time ago. I'm not sure if he's still alive or not. We should check that for sure. But that does bring us to the end of our discussion for today. And hopefully we have inspired you to read this novel yourself. But first, let's listen to our Chinese teacher.
接着，请看第3段的第一个句子。To reach this end, Santiago must embrace the unity of all things, another prominent theme. 那这里有很多的主旨。 其中有一个主旨呢，就是为了要达成这个目标 ，to reach this end， 就为了达成这个目标 ，Santiago 呢必须要接受什么什么。好，再来，请看到第二个句子 ，Just as Santiago is united with the soul of the world through his visions, when he prays to the hand that wrote all, his unity with the higher power grants him his own godlike abilities. 请同学把 just as 画起来，要记住，这是正如同啊，它是个连接词，正如同。好，请同学呢，接着再看到第四段的第二句 ，Born in 1947这个句子讲到了作者的父母亲，他们都有信教，而且蛮虔诚的。那儿子就是我们这本书的作者，他其实呢是希望能够成为作家的，但爸妈并不支持，并不认同。英文怎么说请同学看到 discouraged him from pursuing his dream of becoming a writer， 就是爸爸妈妈并不支持他去追梦。请同学把这个地方画下来，画起来。再来，请看到第三个句子 instead 这个句子，请同学把 before dropping out 画起来 ，drop out 就是辍学的意思。再来第四个句子，请同学把逗点之后 he went on a pilgrimage 画起来，这里呢就是朝圣的意思，朝圣的意思。好，那请同学注意到这个地名像他去哪里朝圣呢 ？Santiago de Compostela。这里呢，就是相传耶稣12门徒之一的大雅各 Saint James the Great 安葬的地方，所以这个地方是天主教朝圣的圣地之一。好，以上就是我们针对这一本书所做的2天的介绍的第2天单元的中文讲解。希望同学呢有机会把这本书找来看看。谢谢大家。
All right, everybody, that is all the time we have for today. For English Digest, I'm Leah.
And I'm Tom. Goodbye.
Goodbye.